Stay on target.
Almost there.
Stay on target.
They're right behind me.
Almost there.
What?
Hello and welcome to this edition of Yakima on Target. I'm your host, Sean Davido, and today I'm joined by Charles Ross, the Yakima County Auditor. Thank you for joining me today, Charles.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, today we're going to talk about the Auditor's Office, but I want to focus a little bit on primary elections. It's primary election season. Let's talk about the importance of primary elections.
Right. Well, the primary election is the first election of two dealing with any kind of contest that has political figures and not a tax question. Right. So this is the election where we have some elections here in Yakima this time, especially here in the city, where we have multiple people running for the office. So going through the primary election season will winnow those folks down to two. And in the city of Yakima, for example, it's a nonpartisan race, so it really doesn't matter what party the person is affiliated with. It has no bearing on how they have to register for office, where other offices like state legislature, for example, you must select a party as part of that.
Now, the importance of the primary election, and it tends to be lower voter turnout in Yakima County and around the state, I'm guessing. What can we do to change that?
Well, that's right, and Yakima County's average 5-year voter turnout for a primary race sits at about 35%, and in the low range it'd be 27%, and some of the higher ranges would be 46%. So we see that variation, but there's a trend that it's showing a decrease over time. We keep seeing a lower turnout rate, which is concerning to us, and it's not just here in Yakima, it is statewide. So the Secretary of State, Kim Wyman, the state legislature, as well as all the 39 different counties have been taking on a real aggressive approach trying to help increase voter turnout and make voting as simple as possible. So they've done 3 things. One is all ballots from now on will be prepaid postage, so no stamps required on any ballot anymore. Right. We're hoping that that will maybe help increase turnout. Some people say that the stamp has been a barrier for them, just out of convenience.
Do I have a stamp? I've got to get some stamps.
Right. So that was a good change. I think most people would appreciate that. The other 2 changes are more technical. One being, we have a formal process now for the people who are 17 and about to turn 18, so 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register and get ready to vote. So it's kind of an automatic process when their birthday rolls around. And the last thing that we're doing is automatic voter registration at the DMV. So if you're applying and you're receiving an enhanced driver's license or an enhanced identity card, you will then automatically be put into a voter status, where before the DMV person had to ask you and you had to affirm that, where now it's just going to be kind of part of an automatic process and you would have to opt out. So we're hoping that that will help reduce the amount of difference between people who are of voting age and eligible compared to people who are registered to vote. There is a big difference there. About almost half the population isn't registered to vote, even though they're entitled to. And
so right in that process, they'll be able to vote on their birthday. Say their birthday is the day before or 2 days before the election, they would be able to vote.
Yeah, so if you were an election day baby, for example, and you turned 18 on election day, whatever election it is, under the new law, you can show up in my office on election day as an 18-year-old, register, receive a ballot, and participate in the election. So from, after this new implementation of laws, I really can't think of a single thing that would be prohibiting or holding back a voter from participating other than their own choice.
Now let's talk about Yakima County voters. How can people drop their votes off? They can mail them, or there are other options?
Yeah, that's a great question. The easy and most preferred method for security for the voter and also certainty of the process is to put your ballot in a U.S. postal box. That's the best way. But if that doesn't work for you, or if it's election day and maybe you're not sure if the postal office has already picked up that blue box and you can't make it to the post office on election day, for example, we have gone out and put drop boxes in every single city in Yakima County, in their local town halls, or in the library in Wapato, for example. There's a little drop box that's open during their normal working hours. And on election day, that box will be open until 8 o'clock in your community, every community. There's also a 24-hour drive-up drop box located in front of the Yakima Nation tribal headquarters in their parking lot. We have one of those 24-hour drop boxes in Sunnyside by the post office, and there's one here in Yakima on Martin Luther King. And if all else fails, you can come to the Yakima County Courthouse and deal with our staff that day to register, get a ballot, and vote, clear up until Election Day. We're working on opening a satellite location for that same services in the mid to lower valley, but we're just not absolutely sure yet where that's going to be. But by the general election, for sure, there'll be a facility closer to the people who live down in the Grandview, Sunnyside area, so they don't have to drive so far. But the ballot itself, I think the number one thing that I try to always remind voters is if your ballot is not postmarked correctly, it will not count, especially if you're trying to put it in the system on Election Day or the day before. You have to really pay attention to where you're dropping that ballot off. Right. If it goes into a postal carrier box, those little blue boxes, and it's already been picked up, then it's going to get picked up the next day and postmarked a day too late. And I just would hate for a voter to have their ballot not count for that reason. But we're also instituting a new program where we're reaching out to voters after the fact to let them know that something happened and your ballot did not count. For a long time, we did not do that with every voter. We only did that up until Election Day, let people know in advance. But we're going to start doing that after the election, just so a voter would know that, hey, the way I've been doing it is not working.
Now let's talk about where people can find information about Yakima County elections.
Right.
Where do people look
Yeah,
for
so
that?
what I always recommend voters do in this digital age now, we've really worked hard to make sure our website is user-friendly. And honestly, the easiest thing to do is just Google Yakima County elections. Right. It'll be probably the first clickable link you'll see on Google, for example. You click on there and you'll see our website, and it's just loaded with information. So it has the calendar, when you have to, when the dates are for certain cutoffs related to online registration. It tells you where those drop boxes are in your community. There's a picture of the drop box. If it's one that's out in the community, it'll tell you how to contact us. You can send us emails. There's a link there where you can log on to your own voting record and look at your own voting history through iVote. Very simple process. And that is where the voter guide is, which is what most people are looking for. It's very easy. It's 1 or 2 clicks off of our main homepage for elections, and you'll be able to look at all the different candidates for Yakima County primary race. It's the most comprehensive, comprehensive, in-depth amount of information for those candidates who have responded. Right. And if somebody needs that in a print version, they can call our office. The phone number's right there. It's just, we've really, really worked to try to make that website available to the voter whenever they need it. So if you pull out your smartphone right now, you type those words into Google, you'll be within 1 or 2 clicks of having all that information at your fingertips.
Wonderful. Let's talk a little bit about changes that you've seen since you've been in the auditor's office. Let's talk about changes to the office itself. What have you done?
Well, there's been quite a few things that are happening within the elections world. I would say probably, going out and putting in those drop boxes have been the biggest evolution we've had. We had to create a partnership with every community, which was actually kind of fun to go out and get to know the folks in Town Hall. Union Gap comes to mind. They're a group of people down in Union Gap City Hall who just are so excited about this opportunity, and they put out sandwich boards, vote here, and they promote voting, which is really what we're after. We continue to go to every citizenship ceremony in Yakima County. We go over there with our staff and we register to people votes as soon as they're done with their citizenship ceremony, which is really kind of an amazing thing to see. A person becomes a U.S. citizen through that ceremony, and then immediately they're filling out a voter registration card. And we do that regularly. We provide all our voter information in English and Spanish on every single thing that we produce to ensure that people, if their preferred language is Spanish, we want to make sure they're understanding what the instructions and the requirements are for voting. So Yolanda in our office handles that program, and she does a wonderful job. Kathy Fisher is our election manager, does a wonderful job. She's been there many, many years and has lots of experience. And we continue to reach out to those seniors every year in the high schools across the valley, and we send them senior packets that help them think about registering and those kinds of things. So it's very busy. Depends on how many elections there are. If it's a presidential year, we see the turnout rates approach 80% on a presidential general election, which means we have 115,000 registered voters in Yakima County. So it is a lot of ballots. The downside to some of these changes, if there is a downside, would simply be this, that it's going to change our workload. So we're going to get a lot of people on election day in our office, providing us ballots and working the system to participate, which is going to delay our ability to count those ballots further out after election day. So probably I would forewarn communities and candidates in particular that our election results are going to be now later than usual. So that's just one of the trade-offs we've had to make.
Now, in smaller communities, some of these races can be very tight. And in Yakima, some of the district races can be pretty tight.
Absolutely.
Talk about that a little bit and how counting goes. How do you guys count the ballots?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. We've had a couple of really close races.
Yes.
If you remember, we had a legislative race that was almost a tie.
Yeah.
So we've done a recount on a legislative race. And I think that one, if my memory serves me, we were within 9 votes. So our election night total, or our election totals that we were getting ready to certify, it was so close that we did a recount, a hand recount. So we actually separated every ballot, and the totals were exactly the same, which is good. I mean, it says that our software is working exceptionally well. So we had that race that was very close. We've had the Wapato mayor race was extremely close, and many other city races that just don't attract headlines are often decided within 3 to 5 votes.
Right.
So those are the scenarios where I always tell people when I hear a voter say, well, my vote really doesn't matter. I would say directly to the opposite of that is that in your local race, which affects you more than any other race, your vote does matter.
West Valley School District.
Exactly.
Recently, I think it was just a few votes.
Right,
and the
right.
difference,
Exactly,
so.
exactly. And especially in those races where it's a small population of voters,
Right.
So if it's an off-year election where we're only looking at, we may only have a 30% turnout,
Right.
Every vote matters.
Yeah. Now, you do much more in the auditor's office than just elections. Talk about a little bit about the duties that the auditor's office takes on.
So being the auditor and working in the auditor's office is kind of fun because we have many different distinct divisions within it. We have elections, obviously, where we handle 3 to sometimes 5 elections every year. That division runs with 5 folks that are full-time that work there. We handle all of the accounts payable work for Yakima County. So we audit, oversee, and then generate every single check that goes out the door for Yakima County, which is a tremendous amount of accounts payable work. Yeah, it is. It is. Then we also do the payroll for all of Yakima County. So we have almost 1,000 employees, and we handle their payroll. We're going through a huge financial system upgrade. So we're really working hard this year to try to make all that work on time and go smoothly. As you know, software upgrades can be tricky.
Can be challenging.
Yes. Then on top of that, probably the next biggest thing we do is all of the licensing and recording.
Exactly.
The DMV, or not DMV, but the Department of Licensing issues that folks deal with when you go to get your license tabs.
Right.
All of that throughout the county is actually supervised by my office. So those sub-agents, out there in the communities are kind of a partner of ours. And then we also do that same work in the county courthouse for licensing and tab work. So vehicle licensing is a huge bit of work we do with transactions every single day. And then on top of that, those same people then handle all the land title transactions and all the recording of the documents. So we are basically the keeper of the public record. So we do just hundreds and hundreds of document transactions all the time in our office. So it's a busy office, but we also work closely with the county budget. We have financial oversight to some degree to the county. We're more of a we're a check to, the check and balance with the budget is balanced between our office and the county commissioner's finance budget division. So it's kind of a little bit of everything. And
passport. I recently went in there and got my passport.
Thank you. That
and
actually,
the photo
you're
taken.
right. You're right. And which has been kind of an interesting thing in just the 5 years I've been here. Passport consumption, the rate of which we're helping people, for a while was just increasing at a rate that was unbelievable. So we've really worked hard on trying to make our process more convenient for people coming in. And like you just said, I've heard from most people say it's a very, very good experience.
It was.
You can go to the post office and get a passport in Yakima County, or you can come to the county auditor's office. And we really work hard to try to make sure we're convenient to people. But again, people need to know that when you come to apply for a passport, our role is not to ensure that you get a passport. Right. We're there simply to do some verification, and we're acting on behalf of the federal government to ensure your identity. Right. Whether your application is going to actually generate and create a passport for you is something that's between the federal government and the individual,
the
not
auditor's
us, not
office
us.
does not make that decision.
Right.
So.
We just try to help. We provide photos in the office, so kind of a one-stop shop.
Yeah. We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
What else do we need to talk about? Is there anything else out there?
Well, I think you've
get out and
most
vote is
yeah,
probably
yeah,
the big
yeah.
message, right?
Yeah, definitely is. You know, and the other thing we always try to tell folks, and you know, sometimes this helps people, sometimes they forget, but when you get your ballot in this state, plenty of time in advance. You know, so. We always encourage people, open your ballot, you know, get working on it. Don't wait until that last minute, because I can't tell you how many stories I've had voters tell me of how their ballot just didn't get in the mail. It just didn't get there because they got busy. And it's so funny when I ask people, because I can check and find out if you voted. Yeah. We'll never know how you voted. But I always say, if I look and see, did you vote? Yeah. And you should see the amount of people who sheepishly say, no, I filled it out, but I never got it in. It's sitting on the kitchen table. And, you know, again, no stamp, no stamp, any post office, drop box. You know, you can drive right by our office on Martin Luther King, drop it in there, you know, have a party, get together, do something, but try to get your ballot turned in.
Yeah, we do a little voting party, and then we take them all.
There you go.
Stick them in the box or stick them in the mailbox.
Right, and if you have any questions or anything like that, please just contact our office. Send us an email. We respond to emails. It's very, very simple. If you just log onto our website, you'll see there's a multitude of ways to contact us. And if you're really having trouble, come down and see me.
Yeah, and we'll share that information right after the show. We've got a little informational page we'll give to our viewers. So
thank you.
Thank you very much for joining me today,
Thank you very much. Yeah, anytime.
And thank you for joining us on Yakima on Target. For more information about the Yakima County Auditor's Office and the services they provide, visit the website at www.yakimacounty.us/auditor or email askycauditor@co.yakima.wa.us. If you have questions about Yakima County elections, visit www.yakimacounty.us/elections, send an email to ivote@co.yakima.wa.us, or call the office at 509-575-1400.
Stay on target.
Almost there.
Stay on target.
They're right behind me. Almost there.
What?
For more information on YPAC programming, please call 575-6092.